This section is all about change of direction. Key points here will be the rotational and linear dynamics within change of direction, and then principles of coaching as it pertains to change of direction. Change of direction is something that I think it's worth talking about right away before we get any further, is that the actual technique in change of direction, so the actual specifics, are going to be dictated very much so by the game-specific stimuli in one sport. There is such a variety in terms of combinations of vectors that athletes could be running, where the athlete's running a particular vector, their opponent's running a vector, the ball's going a direction, and all of those things, as well as the game time instinct, where an athlete's instinctual side is going to also direct how they move. It's been shown by practitioners in motor learning and athlete development and agility that athletes who react to game-specific stimuli will biomechanically move different with the same general direction change versus athletes who need to just go around a cone or something like that. So I think we need to realize that no matter what, game-specific stimuli, decision-making, ultimately all that stuff is going to be the ultimate when it comes to good change of direction ability. But outside of that, there are some really important things that we can consider and I think need to consider when it comes to change of direction. But another element as well that I just think is really cool is I always look at change of direction as a training stimulus, and then I look at it in its relation to other athletic skills. I like its capacity as a training stimulus. I'm always intrigued by it because I have a background in playing basketball. And I always found that whether it was basketball or even other team sports where there was a lot of change of direction, I was always just better overall athletically. And actually one of the highest, the most explosive jumping experiences of my life actually came after it was a month, if not more, where our coach was just ripping us at the end of the practice with all these fast change of direction oriented wind sprints. And I look at change of direction also in that light, where I think, well, what does this fit to? What else does this fit to athletically? And we also can look at coordination and we think of, well, it's an acceleration plus a fast change of direction. It's acceleration plus or a reversal plus a new acceleration. It's like, in some ways, it's a more skillful form of sprint acceleration. And there's rotational components. So we're going to get all of these, we're going to get into all of this here within this section. So a few key elements when it comes to a basic change of direction. So a basic cut running in a linear straight line into and out of a cut. One is that it's even more of a squatted run. And a lot of these we're going to reference things we have talked about throughout this course, but it's going to be even more of a squatted type of run because when you get into that cut, you are very low to the ground, very squatted. So that's going to demand that the cut out is also going to be with a relatively low center of mass. So we'll see the same thing happening here at this cut. So instead of where acceleration is simply low to high, so and we'll go back here real quick, where acceleration is very simply low to high, in a change of direction or a straight cut, you actually have a high to low back to high again. And you have almost even more extreme point of compression there in the stop than you do. You have a lot more eccentric forces going on. You have a lot more compression than even a typical first step in an acceleration step. And there's different ways people can hit that compression, that most compressed point. Some athletes who are more internally rotated may end up the leg far more in. Other athletes may be able to make it look more like a squat or a medium stance squat with the knees out slightly more. And so different body types, different rotations are going to cause the cut to look a little bit differently, but it's all relatively the same mechanism. One of the things with that difference in the cut and how you drop into the cut is I've actually found, and it's interesting to map out these different athletic skills, acceleration, change of direction, and then jumping, which we have here, and as I said, I found that in doing a lot of change of direction work, it had a really positive impact on my jumping. And I have seen this in track and field, for example, when athletes stop playing team sports for a long time. One of the things they're missing is, well, one is just playing a game and having fun, but within that game, you have a lot of changes of direction. And so even looking at this cut here, so you'll look at me in the cut on the left, and it looks very, very similar to the takeoff there that you'll see on the right. In some ways, that cut is actually a more extreme version of that takeoff. And it's a more high speed version of that takeoff. And the main difference is in one, you cut back the other way, and in the other, you jumped upwards. And sometimes we might think, well, how do athletes build their skills over time? I actually think that double leg jumping is built on the base of being able to cut and change directions solidly. I think there's a lot more linking there than people realize. And so even within writing workouts for athletes who are looking to jump higher, I actually will include a lot of rapid change of direction work that I tend to superset in with their jumping, because I feel like it is a very helpful stimulus to overload that portion of their jump and help them to overall be more athletic.